Every Saturday in September, one click will pick the biography you want to watch. So log on to biography.com. Choose a wise guy, a country singer, a rock star, and call the shots. Viewer's Choice Saturdays on Biography. Saturdays in September on A&E. Biography goes behind the scenes of Happy Days, Cheers, Laverne and Shirley, and The Love Boat. TVography Week on Biography. All this week on A&E. A&E. Escape the ordinary.
From A&E, this is Biography. For September 4th, 2001, Biography with Harry Smith.
They were shows that made us laugh. But more than that, they helped define an era in American culture. Welcome again to TVography Week, the behind-the-scenes stories of 5 television programs that are gone, but certainly not forgotten. Tonight, Cheers, where the beer was always cold and the writing always fresh. In the spring of 1993, the promo department at NBC was promising the television event of a lifetime. The hyperbole was understandable. The event was the final episode of Cheers. 80 million Americans tuned in that night to drink in one final round with Sam and Rebecca, Cliff and Norm, and all the other regulars. Cheers had endured defections of cast members and even death, but it remained must-see TV for 11 years, close to an eternity in television terms. During its long life, Cheers proved that a sitcom can be funny and smart, week after week.
In 1982, a little neighborhood bar served up its first round of drinks. Cheers. Not just a tavern, a family. A motley group of friends on bar stools.
Who isn't here?
Hey, afternoon, everybody. No!
And a love-hate saga America couldn't get enough of.
You felt that these two people were pissed off at each other and they were going to battle it out.
They were a bunch of losers who only survived by being a family.
For more than a decade, everybody knew its name. But behind the scenes, sometimes there was tension.
It really didn't cross my mind that I was sabotaging a show.
Even beloved actors who passed away.
It was so terrible when Nick died.
Cheers had to reinvent itself again and again. New faces came and went, but week after week, year after year, America came down to this corner bar and stayed. The year was 1981. NBC was desperate for a hit.
In a 3-comedy network world, NBC was like number 5, okay? Out of it.
The network was looking to make its mark with something different, something witty. Not a talking car, not a primetime soap opera. Not a show with blondes in tank tops and short shorts. They turned to a hot young comedy writing team for help, an unlikely pair of brothers.
Glenn and Les Charles were a high school teacher and an advertising copywriter who lived on the East Coast and would come home every Saturday night and watch TV.
The Charles brothers had sold a script to MASH, worked on Phyllis with director James Burrows, then gone on to team up on Taxi. Together they pitched a comedy to NBC. They said it would be just like Three's Company, except completely different.
Glenn and Les Charles and Jimmy Burrows had a wonderful observation, a great broadcast observation. They said, you know, if you look at television, the only show that deals with relationships of young adults is Three's Company. And they said, you know, that's a funny show and that's fine, but wow, do we think there's a lot of territory that's not covered.
The original idea was a show set in a hotel, like Grand Hotel, but as a sitcom. Soon the hotel became a bar set in Boston, a melting pot of quirky characters and sports legends. Glenn Charles headed east to scout bars in Boston.
My wife and I were back in Boston. She opened a phone book under bars, and Bull and Finch was right. We were at the Ritz-Carlton, was right across the park from us, so that was one of the first places we went into.
The Bull and Finch had been a popular bar near the Boston Commons for years, and it had a special feature. A walk-down entrance. From inside, you could see the legs of the next guest coming down the stairs. Within the bar, the producers decided to create an atmosphere like the dispatch room in Taxi, a group comedy with no single stars. It was a family of sorts, somewhat dysfunctional, but still a family. They began auditions for the bartender, a reformed alcoholic and ex-football player named Sam Malone. One choice was an actual ex-athlete, former LA Rams defensive end Fred Dryer. Another was film and TV veteran William Devane.
Stepping out, eh?
Just a black tie dinner.
You sure do live well.
The third actor up for the part was a new face who had played a gay hairdresser on an episode of Taxi. His name, Ted Danson.
The interesting thing about Ted is that he looks like a leading man. He's best when you give him offbeat character roles. We also saw him in Body Heat, where he's the dancing district attorney, and thought, wow, this isn't the guy we saw in Taxi. This isn't the guy that came in red for us.
That dress is irresistible.
So's your Aramis.
Ted had heated up the small screen as the Aramis Cologne spokesman and appeared in films like The Onion Field. But he felt this character, this skirt-chasing prima donna, was a stretch for him.
I'm not a jock. You know, I went to my first baseball game with Jimmy to like, oh, wow, that's cool. In preparation for Sam, you know, a womanizer. I didn't hit on women a lot. You know, I'd rather die than ask somebody for a date.
Of course, Sam Malone wasn't the only role they were casting.
So here we had a guy at the center of the show, Sam Malone, who spoke to men. His needs were very primal. He was very clear in what he wanted. And he had that little black book. So we knew we would have a character that could really speak to men, and of course that's exactly what it did. But their brilliance in conceiving the show said, well, we can't leave a guy unchecked.
Sam's foil, his opposite, the intelligent, long-winded, uptight Diane Chambers. Originally up for the part were Julia Duffy, Lisa Eichhorn, and a third actress, a veteran of the famed comedy group Second City. Her name was Shelley Long, and she had begun to star in such movies as Caveman and Night Shift. With her film career on the move, Shelley wasn't sure she should even think about a TV series, but this script about a little bar in Boston stuck in her head.
Really great writing is so rare that when you see it, you know it. It just speaks to you. It was back and forth. You could tell it was just boom, 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 boom.
After Shelley read for the role of Diane, she knew she had nailed it.
After I did it, Jimmy and maybe one or two others in the room laughed in a way that I could tell. It was like, she got it, you know. It was like, oh yeah, somebody understands. And you know, I loved being appreciated.
But before either Ted or Shelley could be considered for the roles, all of the candidates had to be screen tested together to see who had the best chemistry as a couple. At first, the producers were actually leaning towards another pairing.
The guy who really, really did a great job auditioning was Fred Dryer for Sam Malone. There was a lot of Fred Dryer in life who was Sam Malone.
But then Ted Danson was paired with Shelley Long.
We saw Shelley Long match up with Ted Danson. It just felt right. You didn't feel like you were watching a scene. You felt that these two people were pissed off at each other and they were going to battle it out.
How do you think it feels to be attracted to someone that makes you sick?
I could write a book on this subject.
I definitely got cheers because I was coupled with Shelley. I mean, I'm sure of that.
In that screen test, what happened between Ted and Shelley, there was no question. We went back to our office afterwards and just looked at each other, and we didn't hardly need to say anything. It was so an immediate chemistry. And they both came up so much for the occasion.
And so the decision was made for them. Ted and Shelley would get the parts. The other actors would each go on to other roles, other successes. Fred Dryer on NBC's series Hunter, Bill Devane on Knots Landing, and Julia Duffy on the sitcom Newhart. But with Ted Danson playing Sam, details about the bartender's character would need to change before any shooting began.
Ted, I think, was the farthest away from what we had written. In fact, the original Sam Malone was a football player. We thought that would be a better contrast with a upscale lady. But when we were pretty sure we were going to cast Ted, we were thinking he does not look like a football player. And at that time there was a relief pitcher in the early 80s for the, I believe it was with the Red Sox, wasn't it? Bill Lee, who was called the Spaceman. Yeah, exactly. And we thought that's even better, you know, the quirky aspect of that. We thought it was much better to give him this offbeat, quirky spaceman attitude.
So, Les, Glenn, and James made him a retired relief pitcher, Sam Mayday Malone. Rookie of the Year, ex-jock, bartender, God's gift to women. Ted was soon ready to pour the drinks, even if he couldn't quite convince himself that anyone would see him as a real ladies' man.
I used to break into sweats when Sam came on to somebody across the bar. It took me 2 or 3 years to realize that if I kept my mouth shut, people actually thought I was a sexy guy. If I just allowed them that thought and didn't contradict them, the fact that they were hiring very pretty girls to go ooh and ah over me, and I had really cool lines to say, actually gave me the appearance of this sexy, cool guy if I just kept my mouth shut.